Sometimes it feels like there are invisible rules about how we're supposed to be. You have to be professional but approachable, ambitious but not too much, confident but without seeming arrogant, take care of everything and make it all look easy. And what's interesting is that we don't even question a lot of these expectations because we've just accepted them as normal. That's why today we want to talk about them. Welcome to the pilot episode of Tippy Owner, a new space born from a very simple idea: to have real conversations with our TP people about topics that affect us both inside and outside of work. And we're starting with one that really makes you think: March 8th, International Women's Day. And our idea isn't just to focus on the day or the symbol. We want to talk about things that happen every day. And for this first conversation, I'm joined by 4 people from TP who have agreed to participate with the best energy to take part in this pilot. I'm really grateful to you all, first of all. So let's get started. I'm going to throw a direct question at you. What does March 8th mean to you today? So Maria and Alvito, I'm going to ask you, what do you think? Is it a day for activism, an uncomfortable day, a necessary one, or a bit of everything? What are your vibes?
There's a large group of people who can feel represented on this day, but it's also true that it carries memories from many years ago of women who fought so that we could be here today.
Maria, what do you think?
Well, I think it's important. It's true that I think the day has lost some of its strength compared to what was being fought for in the past. It's important to have it so we don't forget it, but I do think that the significance it used to have isn't the same now, and I don't think it will be in the future either. I think that the idea of March 8th itself is great, but I think it doesn't have the same symbolism it used to.
And how do you all see it?
It started with some very specific and serious issues, which, thanks to the movement, have been gradually eliminated, but other points have been added that weren't part of its origins. They weren't fighting for.
I was going to ask you too, Arce. What do you think? Do you think there's a cliche around it too?
I personally believe it's a truly essential and important day, that it's a fundamental human right, and that every woman can choose to focus on it however she wants to.
However,
She sees fit. As long as it's necessary for a certain percentage of women who experience it, it's welcome.
now let's talk about something I'm going to bring up. Something I also think sparks some reflection or debate. Microaggressions. We're not talking about big, obvious situations, but rather those everyday comments or behaviors that often go unnoticed, but still leave a mark in some way. So, Oviedo and Maria, I'm going to ask you this question. Does any example come to mind that happened to you and that the other person probably didn't even notice? How'd you react? Did you talk about it or just let it go? Is there a situation or comment you've experienced?
Now, honestly, when it comes to microaggressions, I think it also depends a bit on your attitude, how you take certain comments or how you deal with them at a given moment. I don't remember having had a conversation or gesture of microaggression. Maybe also because of the attitude I have. Maybe it's my attitude toward that question. Or not.
Yes, putting your attitude aside because you are all about attitude, Oviedo. It's about how you perceive the other person, right?
Right now, I can't remember any case of microaggression where I thought, you did this because I'm a woman. Honestly, no.
Wow, well, that's lucky.
Honestly, no.
Maria, what about you?
As for microaggressions, I wasn't even aware that I was a woman until I started experiencing them. Let me explain a little. In the end, when you study for a degree, do internships and all that, I've always considered myself equal to the rest of my classmates. But until you get involved in certain networks or certain environments, you don't realize that maybe this is happening to me not because I'm Maria, but because I'm Maria, a woman, and on top of that, a young woman, right? You always feel like you're being questioned about things. As for examples of microsexism, yes, they definitely exist, right? The classic example we all mention is when you go to a bar and order a Coke and a beer, and they always give the beer to the man and not to the woman. Honestly, I even laugh when that happens because I think, okay, I get that this is something so deeply rooted in society that even though we all know it's not right, it still happens. I think that's pretty much in line with what the video's saying. How do you handle these kinds of situations? You could take it really badly and get upset about it. Or you could just say, it's a cultural thing that's changing over time. But legally, there's nothing more that can be done to promote this equality. And culturally, we're doing everything we can, considering that society is already aware that this exists. So, yeah, there are examples, but I think the difference is how you take it and how it makes you feel.
Absolutely. But in the end, in our daily lives, you do notice, or we do notice these. How do you all see it?
Yeah, I think they're present in our everyday lives. And kind of tying in with what my colleagues are saying, the good and important thing is that everyone gets to decide whether they notice it or not, whether they think it's okay or not, whether they want to handle it one way or another. You have the freedom to politely say, I didn't like that. Please don't approach it that way. That's why some people see these things more clearly and others don't. I think they're there because it's the result of many years of cultural upbringing. It's impossible. I really like to pay attention to the new generations. We have to learn, just like they learn things from us, we also learn from them. And since I've had the chance to work with very young people in Barcelona at a certain time, they also teach you how to handle these things, how to downplay them, or how to give them importance.
And do you think these new generations are ahead when it comes to issues like microaggressions and so on? Or when it comes to equality?
I don't think it's about being ahead. I think they just have a different focus than we do. But we can contribute to them, and they can also contribute to us.
I think we're a springboard. We're the springboard generation between what happened before and, in a way, the evolution of what's going to happen in the future. Because if you talk now with generations much younger than us or with little kids, the topic of equality isn't even in their vocabulary. They just take it for granted because we really should take it for granted. I mean, hey, the Constitution says we have the same rights. And I don't think anyone should have to ask for permission to have them. You have them, and you can exercise them. So I think that we and the way we educate our children or the education we see at work, that's what's going to make it so that this topic isn't even discussed in the future. In school, they're already getting that kind of education. Thank you. It's more about the message, not so much about women's equality, but rather, and I think this is where things have gone wrong, respect for the other person, whether you're a man or a woman. And that's what you have to teach, respect for the other person.
That's key. And have you ever found yourself saying, like, I make a comment or do something and then think, wow, this is a pattern I've learned. Has it ever happened to you that you yourselves have?
Constantly.
Really?
Because in the end, but honestly, I'd say it's in general. It's not just about machismo or feminism anymore. In the end, you come from an upbringing
Cultural.
that's cultural. So there are expressions you don't even pay attention to, and suddenly there's someone who maybe doesn't like it, right? Things just slip out of your mouth, and as soon as you say,
And from others too. I just. And you, David? Me?
Regarding microaggressions, I think that if we let this evolve naturally, everything will be much less disruptive, less violent between generations or between genders. And I think that, in the end, it's about allowing society to move forward and normalizing it. Because in everyday life, at home, when a man does household chores, if you point it out to your son that you're doing them and you're a man, in the end, it doesn't become normal for him. So I think it's something we all need to get past, respect each other, work together, and seek equality, but in a natural way. I think it's a matter of respecting where we come from and being clear about where we're all headed, and then looking down toward the next generations, which is exactly what you were talking about. We're the springboard.
And
We see it. At school, that's already happening. They no longer encourage it. The idea that there are men's chores, men's professions, and women's professions. We come from generations where, in private schools, girls and boys were given different household chores and tasks.
And
That's completely a thing of the past now. Thank you. The natural transition.
for example, I have a son and a daughter, and it seems like the message I have to give now is that I need to put my daughter on a pedestal, talk to her about equality, but not to my son, right? What I want for my kids is to put both of them on equal footing and talk to them with respect. That is, I don't talk about equality at home. My daughter doesn't perceive equality because I don't make her understand it, because it's something she should have inherently within her. But both my daughter and my son, and I want the same equality and respect and in the decisions they make in their lives, whether it's my son or my daughter. So you don't have to say, look, your brother is making the bed because he's a boy and your sister has to. No. I mean, if you don't have those kinds of conversations and they just see the act itself, that's what people.
Of course, but that's education. But the thing is,
There's education that has to start at home.
most certainly.
But even in the workplace, because teleperformance and the sector in general seem to me to be an example of how we normalize that it doesn't matter who's in what position, whether it's a man or a woman. It's not constantly highlighted whether it's a man or a woman. It just happens and that's it. Nothing out of the ordinary.
That's right. Yeah.
I think that's it. For those of us who started from the bottom, I've always had supervisors, managers, whatever you want to call them, both men and women, and no one has ever said to me, hey, look, it's a woman. And that's something in this industry, maybe even more than in others, that you really appreciate because there's no extra publicity.
When someone interviews you, like now it's Women's Month, and you see interviews with women who I think it's totally admirable that they interview you and ask, how did you achieve this? I don't want to be interviewed just because I'm a woman. I want to be interviewed for my work, for my professionalism, not just because I'm a woman, but because of my work, the path I've taken, the attitude I have toward others, or what I contribute to others. That's what should get me that interview, not just the fact that I'm a woman.
Performance isn't about hiring women just because they're women. If necessary, efforts are made to ensure there's at least some gender equality.
Also, kind of along the lines of microaggressions, look, I think one of the problems with the term is that we assume it's always men who commit microaggressions, but that's not always the case. So we find ourselves in situations where we think, like with the Coca-Cola example, I said a waiter, but it could have just as easily been a waitress. What I mean is that in the end, it always comes down to a mindset we all have. No matter how much we know how we're supposed to think, sometimes it's just ingrained in us because of everything we've talked about before, right? It's something that's learned, something you've often seen at home, or maybe not, or your grandparents have seen it. So, in the end, it's still something that exists. Micromachismo is real, and it's something that's always going to be around. Hopefully, less and less, of course, but these little habits will keep happening until, as they say, we no longer need them.
Well, that's interesting. Let's wrap up this segment here because otherwise, I think we could keep talking for a long time. And now, to shake things up a bit, we're going to do something different. I'm going to throw out a statement, and you tell me quickly if you think it's a myth or reality. If you want to add something, we can talk about it. In the workplace, real equality between men and women already exists. No, or reality?
Reality.
Reality? Yes.
I think it's reality too.
Myth.
I think it depends, because it's neither one nor the other. I mean,
No, come on, you have to take a stand, Maria.
Here we have reality, the reality camp.
I think there is a reality because I believe the law supports it, okay? I mean, we have laws that guarantee equality between men and women in any job position. That everyone thinks this equality has to exist. And there, I have to say it's a myth. Because I think there are still people who are a bit stuck in the past and aren't aware of the reality. Kind of like what Arsenio was saying, sometimes we need a push so we know which way we need to go. And sometimes we don't like those positions, not that we don't like them, but they don't seem to us to be the most viable or the most ethical.
Moving on to question number 2. It is often said that women are usually asked much more about work-life balance than men are. Is this a myth or a reality?
Reality.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
So, is there total agreement here?
Yes.
Does anyone want to add anything else about this?
Well, I think that the fear an employer has when hiring a woman nowadays is that in their mind, they're clearly seeing that kids. And with a man, they don't see that. But it's the woman who will take leave because she's the one who will get pregnant. So that's another very different topic. And if we get into that, we'll have plenty to talk about.
Whatever. Don't worry, we're going to get into that a bit now, too. And now, the last one for this section, which we've already talked about before. The new generations don't have these problems anymore. Myth or reality?
This is the true, undeniable reality of the situation we are facing right now.
Just like that. Absolutely. They don't have these problems.
Myth.
Reality.
Reality. Yes. Are you guys really sure about that?
Yes. I think that a young person in a company with traditional leadership is going to experience that at some point. It can't be 100% true in Spain today.
I think the struggles that new generations face are different. They don't have to constantly fight to prove themselves. There are simply other things that back them up, not whether they're women or men. So I think they do have to fight, it's true, maybe for recognition, but here we're talking about them being young, not about whether they're men or women. We're talking more about experience versus inexperience.
I think there are still some very old-fashioned, very outdated companies where, whether you're young or not, you're going to have a hard time. In fact, their reaction is different. By noon, they leave the company and don't come back. But it happens, and maybe from a hiring perspective, you experience it. It's even more apparent when you do an interview, when they tell you about their previous experiences, when they explain what they want from your company. They know exactly what they want, they're clear about what they've been through, what they haven't, and what they're willing to accept or not. Our generations are more about putting up with things.
Yeah, about sacrifice, fighting, all that. Totally. All right, then. Let's try changing the camera angle. There's a topic and an expectation that's also pretty common when it comes to women. The idea that you have to be able to handle everything. This whole superwoman concept that you hear about a lot. It's about having a career, a family, a personal life, and on top of that, doing it all well and everything else that comes with it. I wanted to ask you, especially to start with David and Arsenio, if you're aware of these invisible burdens that women carry, and if you think that balancing work and life affects them more than it does men.
I'm aware of that, especially for me. I've seen it at home since I was a kid. So I come from a traditional setup, like the old days, mom at home, dad working. But I was raised so that it wouldn't be like that for me. I was raised to understand why my mom did those things and why my dad didn't. And I was taught from the perspective that whoever's there, doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, will have to do it. And what I see is that if there's a superwoman who does everything at home, there's also a superman who does the same. And for me, that's the perfect definition. I can handle the same responsibilities as my wife can. And if at any point we need to balance things out because one of us can handle more, then we do it. And it doesn't matter who is the one struggling. So in that sense, I think what we need to encourage is that the household, whether it's about kids, the house itself, or any other unpaid task, should somehow be shared. One,
Thing is, what each of us experiences and what we encourage in our own homes and pass on to our children or nieces and nephews. And another thing is what's going on around us. Of course, right now we're here in a group where things are pretty clear, everything's in agreement and all that, but obviously we have to look outside a little. How do you see it, Ars?
It's really hard for me to generalize. So, I agree that each person is kind of in charge of their own circumstances, regardless of whether the context sometimes helps more or less. So, yeah, it's hard for me to see the whole superwoman thing in that way. I think sometimes there are people who create situations they later complain about, but they don't do anything to fix them. That happens with both men and women, depending on the roles you accept within the relationship or if you're single. I agree that this has a big impact on what you want to do, how you want to approach things with your partner, and that sometimes we only want the good parts of the situation, but don't want to change certain relationship patterns that are obvious from the outside. Even though in the end, someone has chosen to focus on that. And
How do y'all see it? Do you feel this invisible burden?
I actually think the whole superwoman concept, I don't think any woman wants to be a superwoman. No, not at all.
Not all.
I start from the idea that in the end, it's not that you want to put yourself in that category, it's that you don't have any other choice. We were talking about the transition of fathers, and I think a bit about my own family and all that. And I come to the conclusion that my mom worked, but she also took care of me. My dad he only worked, but then the one who did all the housework was her. I put myself in her shoes, and I think, I don't know if I could do everything she did. And I don't think she wanted to do it voluntarily either. It was just gender roles that get imposed and passed down, and, well, you end up normalizing it. But I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying I don't want that situation. But it's not even something I can consider wanting or not wanting right now because it already exists, or rather, it doesn't exist anymore. Thankfully, or at least in the new relationships people are having now, we're at that 50-50 or something like that. So, starting from the idea that I don't think it's something women want to do voluntarily, I don't think it's something you would even consider discussing with your partner or not, just to do it. I think if we all had a choice, no one would choose to be working, doing all the housework, making food for the kids, going to activities. No, nobody would choose that. I start from the idea that in most cases, that's not voluntary. That's also a very blunt comment. So, starting from the idea that it's a concept that shouldn't exist or that we shouldn't keep, encouraging or giving space to, let's start from the idea of what we actually want. Do we want 50-50 relationships? But the concept itself really shouldn't keep existing.
But I think that's it. It's about the decisions you've made or the choices you make in your life. The thing is, there are people who think they're superwomen, but just like we can talk about superwomen, we can also talk about supermen. I mean, not everything has to be generalized as women doing it all. There are also a lot of men who do it, and we don't call them supermen. I mean, I don't think it's about talking about supermen or superwomen, but about the circumstances each person has chosen for themselves. At home, my dad worked, and he also helped out at home. He took care of us and helped out. That's the problem. It's that my dad doesn't help my mom. Exactly.
The help? You still hear that.
Exactly. It's that he has to help me at home. No one helps me at home. I do it myself, and I don't feel like a superwoman because of it. I'm just a person who lives in a house, has 2 kids, and has to get things done. It's not about being a superwoman. It's just that a lot of times we're the ones who set limits for ourselves that no one else is really putting on us.
Us and society.
But society can say whatever it wants, Sarah. But you have to be aware of what your own limits are and how far you want to go. Society might tell you that you have to follow a certain path, but it's your decision whether you want to go down that path or choose another one.
Absolutely. But look, what you all are talking about, for example, calling them super dads when they're just doing what's normal, what should be a 50-50 split, careful with that. But that still happens. People say, he's such a great dad. I still hear it all the time. He's a great dad. Excuse me, hello.
I'm considered a great dad just because I pick up the kids from school.
But David, that still happens. People still say that. That's what I'm getting at. In the end, I insist, we have a way of thinking that I believe is the right one, and that's where we should be headed, but these dynamics still exist.
Most of us think that way. You.
Have to be free to make your own choices, your own decisions, and know that if I've made a choice throughout my life, if I've chosen to live a certain way, that's a decision I made myself. It might have good or bad consequences, but it's a choice you make freely.
Right, but that's kind of the point we were talking about earlier, is so that you can have that freedom. Everything that came before had to happen. I mean, now you can decide if you want to be a superwoman or not.
Before, you didn't have.
A choice.
Right. No, but I mean, in the world, in the time we're living in the present, that is, today, if a woman, which we've talked about many times, if a woman decides to be a mom and stay at home, I think that's 100% respectable. Just like a woman who also wants to be a mom, but also wants to keep pursuing her career and keep growing. But it's a decision that each person makes independently. What I can't do is then blame, understand me, speaking more casually, society or the company I work for. No, it's a decision I make myself. So I decide to be a mom and stay at home. I decide to be a mom and go to work. But nowadays, every woman has to decide what she wants to do with her life. But every woman and every man. Because let's not forget that we are men and women. And the moment we as women make that separation of me as a woman, no. You as a person make a decision. Whether you're a man or a woman, that's kind of my idea, or what I think.
And now, I'm going to throw out one last question. Do you think that when someone doesn't have family responsibilities, it's automatically assumed they have more availability than the rest?
Yes, that's right.
I completely agree with that.
Who says otherwise?
No? I'm just asking you all.
What country does that person live in?
Totally agree. Without any kind of.
Totally agree, of course. What?
So, how does it happen to you?
Wow, very good. I think it's great. I believe this is great. I believe this is a necessary conversation because I also hope this podcast reaches a lot of people and helps both women and men understand a little that life isn't about where we come from or where we're going. It's about the moment we're in today and how you want to work, educate yourself, or grow for what tomorrow will bring. But I hope it helps them understand that not everything is against men or against women, but rather that I think men and women need to complement each other. Did you?
So, did you enjoy the experience?
Yes, that is correct.
Y'all came in kind of nervous. Yes.
Now I feel more relaxed. The experience helps you reflect a bit on things we all take for granted or that seem really clear to us in our daily lives. And especially by hearing the opinions and experiences of others, seeing how they live it too, it helps you step outside your own context and see things from other people's perspectives. It's really good.
In the end, I think what's important is that everyone has the freedom to feel however they want, and that we all respect that. If someone feels that this world is still very tough for women, we shouldn't deny them that perspective. We should want to understand their context, why they feel that way, what they've suffered, what they've experienced, and then decide if we agree or not. And if someone doesn't see any barriers to moving forward, that should be respected too. Because in the end, there are as many perspectives as there are people, as there are lives. Who can judge that? No one.
Very good. As Arsenio rightly says, to be respected, you have to show respect. And if we start from that foundation, everything will definitely go much more smoothly. And it's really important for everyone to have their own well-formed opinion, isolated, and based on that, decide, educate, shape, or act in their daily life.
If there's one thing this conversation leaves us with, it's that many of these situations aren't always obvious, but they do have an impact. And maybe the first step to changing them is something as simple as bringing them up and talking about them. It is something that is built in small daily gestures, in how we work together, in how we educate, in how we pass on our values, and in how we listen to experiences, especially those different from our own. Thank you, Arsenio, Maria, David, and Elvio. Based on your experiences today, it has been a privilege to have you with us. This has been TYP On Air. We'll talk and see each other in the next episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you.